Again, welcome to Addressing and Solving with Teams Phone. Our lot of use cases. The intent of we got a lot of see up going to be Teams Phone. We've tested it. Knock on this is only metal, but knock on wood. Over here on my right, Mark Vale. I think everyone knows Mark Vale. He needs no introduction. However, I've had the pleasure of working with him for 8 or 9. One smart. I think you all know that. Over here, Mr. Disney. Although he said I was going to get a cease and desist for saying that. Matt came from Disney. He's now at Microsoft. I got to know him through Rick and I do a podcast. Rick Garcia is here in front recording with his Meta glasses, all hip and whatnot. But I got to know Matt when he was still at Disney, and mad respect for this guy. Microsoft picked up a good resource. My name's Innovation at Momentum. As they come to us with crazy complex requirements. On stage with us, so shout out to those guys making this possible. All right, we're going to dive in, and I am going to ask that you try to hold your questions to the end because we have a lot to go through, but if you feel like it's really pertinent to the audience, feel free to ask. We might feel free. Start off with phones, paging, alerting, and door access integrations. So that's going to be going through a mix of everything you see on here. Anything from, we got a decked phone from Yealink to the Polys set up to do multicast paging through the phones, straight to the phones, as well as through some of the other algo equipment, depending on the scenario that we're talking about. So I threw up some napkin drawings just as a reference. This is the kind of the stage setup in general. We're going to be leveraging Teams users. The resource account. And then later in the presentation, we're going to get to a little Power Automate integration we did to hook into the doorbell door phone system. So we'll show kind of what that looks like. All right, real quick before we go into the demos, we're doing this with a Teams native setup to show you Teams directly. We will have some caveats and callouts later talking about why you might want to consider direct routing over native calling plans or Operator Connect. But what we wanted to show today is that you don't have to have a really complex setup in Microsoft to get all this to work. Algo's done great work. Poly, all these device manufacturers have done great work getting their devices certified with Microsoft, whether Teams or SIP Gateway. So a couple call outs here for this kind of setup is you need to make sure that whatever device you're using is SIP Gateway certified if it's not Teams certified. This is actually a hyperlink, so when you get this PowerPoint, you'll have a quick link to the certified list, but you can go Google it. I think it's called Plan for SIP Gateway, and that should be like the top link that comes up in a search result. You can, what we see with our customers, and maybe I should take a poll, how many of you here have paging or alerting or multicast systems? Okay, there's quite a few. You can integrate to an existing system, or you can go greenfield and kind of rip and rebuild using someone like I promise I'm looking at the algo guy. I'm not trying to sell algo. It's just the one that they're certified. For a Teams native setup, you're going to have to identify named users. So when you set up these devices, the recommendation would be to use a shared device license, right? So that's going to be a named user with that shared device calling license assigned to it. So you see here, I can't use the Logi pointer because our security wouldn't let me. Logitech's in here, sorry. But you'll see we've got 3 users here, devices here. They're licensed with a calling license behind it. The one call out here is in Microsoft, when you're setting it up with calling plans and Operator Connect, a 10-digit phone number is required. You're not going to do it like direct routing where you can do extension-based and you can kind of use an SBC to manipulate that call flow. You're going to have to use a 10-digit. So when you first set this up and you assign a phone number to say this algo display, it's open to the PSTN, right? So anyone can start dialing. So as you're planning through this, you need to understand that if you don't want external access to a device like this, you're going to want to go into the Teams Admin Center and lock down inbound PSTN calling to that device to keep it internal to your. And set up dial plans if you want. We see customers all off legacy Cisco's, Mitel's, Avaya's, and Mark and I see this all the time. Sees it. We get asked all the time to match their dial plan out of the legacy system. And we do our best to consult to say, listen, with the speed dials and the dial by name stuff, we try to encourage to use the named calling by contact, right? You can that you can set your speed dials to. You can set speed dials, obviously, in the Teams native client. But there are times where the customer is just right. So we're going to go set up the dial plan. So part of our demo is we've got #0 and #9 just to demonstrate that you can short code dial system. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on use cases. I just kind of listed, for visual paging, a lot of times when you think about paging, as just an individual, you immediately associate to retail. Often here, I need an associate on aisle whatever. And then it goes into medical. You might need to get, code reds out to the staff to rush to a room. Manufacturing, you guys can imagine all the use cases. But what's interesting about visual is there's probably times where you maybe don't want a loud notification, right? It maybe just needs to be a silent notification. It could be with a light. It could be visually. Maybe it's just helping direct people to where they need to be, or it's just alerting to, maybe I'm in a clean lab or something where you need it to be quiet, but I need to get your attention. Then I can maybe use something like this to get your attention. All right, so let's dive into our first demo. One of the things we did when we set up the environment is all of these algo devices are actually IP enabled. So like even this strobe light registered in as a Teams licensed device. But what we decided to do is we're showing how flexible this environment. I'm gonna call in. It's going to be like a paging announcement on this screen here. And then we're going to use multicast. So instead of trying to figure out how to route this through Microsoft SIP Gateway, we're going to use multicast right off the network. We're going to bring it into this ceiling speaker, and we're going to also multicast it to these 2 polyphones. A lot of different use cases. I have a bullhorn. We didn't pull out the bullhorn. But you may want to be able to get announcements throughout the whole building, right? Start to daisy chain these speakers, or you can use multicast. Lots of flexibility there. So I'm going to pick up a phone where we cross my toes. See me crossing my fingers. And what I've done is I've set up the overhead paging user, you can see the device is registered and healthy in Teams in that top screenshot. I've assigned the phone number. I have not blocked it from PSTN, so if you guys feel like being mean, you can dial that number, and then I'll tell you to stop. And then I've set up I didn't even follow my own advice. And then I set up #0 as kind of the short code dial. And where that becomes interesting, maybe Matt, is we've got this decked phone that's a SIP gateway device. And SIP gateway doesn't necessarily have the ability to search for the named user called Denver overhead paging. You could obviously set the phone number as a speed dial, or sometimes people just will remember that I just need to dial #0 to get out. So, without further ado, #0. You're going to see, actually, before this goes, you're going to see this board's going to light up, and it's going to flash lights, so if you have sensitivity. So we've got a multicast coming through the speaker in the display, and then multicast through the poly phones, and I'm going to hang up and multicast through the ceiling speaker, all simultaneously. So one more time. That's going to translate to the user. We have an announcement. Paging Rick Garcia to the front of the room. Oh, you're already there. You guys can imagine what cases you could start to, you can mix and match all of this together. They're not dependent on each other. So if you just want to use the phone, trying to multicast out to, it's a huge, manufacturing facilities are globe, but it's a loud environment that they're in, and so their multicast setup, they don't want to rely on it because the phones don't get loud enough. So if Poly is in the room, maybe think about it. Maybe there's a way to amplify that volume. But what they've in these manufacturing facilities, where they will first blast an alert out to that, and then they'll come back in and hit the phone with a multicast. And it's hazardous materials, right? They're warning their employees that, hey, from this time to this time, we're opening these containers, so make sure you're suited up. So I'll let you guys imagine your use cases. We'll have a Q&A session at the end that we can talk about other use cases. Visual alerting, very much the same thing. The difference is this is for use cases like I need to quickly get an alert out, maybe, and I want people to hit a shelter, or it's, if there's universities or schools in here, it could be, God forbid, an active shooter situation. You need to be able to quickly blast out. Using the same system, we've got another short code where we've set up the user and we've short code #9 to get there, and then down below you'll see we've some options where it's 1 for 1, 4 for all clear. One of them, connect, and we just tested it, and apparently I forgot to hit save. So it's going to keep playing until I call back in and hit 0 to connect me on this. Which one? All clear? Okay. To thank our good friend Scott over at Algo, he sent this package to me so I didn't have to do all the hard work. So #9, I'm going to get a tone here, and then I'm going to press 1. And it's also multicasting through the phones, the speaker, and off the board. And now I've got to call it back to end it. Thank you, Google Fi, for my backup 5G. All right, again, lots of use cases for this. Again, a lot of flexibility on using multicast. As we move into the door one, you're going to start to see I'm using twisted pair. So I'm using actual copper to get some of this stuff done. So we're gonna talk through call box. Again, I'm not going to spend time on all the use cases. The one I'm going to focus on is these in here. Have like stockyards that have gates that, today it's maybe a padlock and maybe you want to go to a call box. So what we'll talk about is how you could potentially set up a remote call box that then calls back into the Teams environment, that then you have a control hub where you don't have to have someone on site in a security shack staring at the gate all day long. You can actually just be remote. And I was talking yesterday, I want one of their video phones and this is a side topic, Teams phone extensibility becomes really interesting with Algo, I think, because on the call box with the video capabilities, thinking about how you could bring that video up into the call dialogue each time that call box is dialed. So then you, not only are you getting the call, you're getting that video feed through Teams phone extensibility. I think that becomes a really cool use case. So again, you can imagine what the different examples would be for. So here's our setup. I am going to talk to the Power Automate. I have screenshots. If we have time, we can demo this. Otherwise, you can come talk to me at the end and I can show you how this is going to work. But what we're going to that's this little Algo device here. I probably shouldn't touch it because I'm going to. This scenario. Everything else is going to be twisted copper. I do have them plugged into Ethernet just for power, so don't let that deceive you. So what the scenario would be is I'm going to use the stockyard as the example. I'm top left with that little red circle. It's call out to my CQ, which is call queue. Bring everybody at once. Done. You have the Teams desktop. Obviously, if you're part of that, it's going to ring your desktop. But set up a this Yealink decked SIP gateway phone. So what this is interesting, this could be used for if you've got guys in the yard that aren't on, maybe they're not on, they have Teams on their cell phone, or they're walking around the yard, they could have a hip belt with this phone on it, and we have the ability second. I'm going to go ahead and hit this. What we're going to do is when I relay the call from the call box down to the door phone, I'm also going to relay with the copper twisted pair to flash this light and send a chime to the speaker. Again, in a yard, you could use a bullhorn, right? So if I've got this tied to my hip, but I'm not necessarily paying attention to the phone, if I hear the bullhorn go off, it tells me, look at my phone. So, and this is a call box, right? So there's two-way audio here, so you can talk back and forth if you need to. But I'm going to press this. You're going to immediately see this. It'll click. You'll see this flash. This will start chiming, and crossing fingers and toes, phones start ringing. And it takes a little bit because you're going to hear the call queue kick in. So here we go. Let's hit the call queue. Here comes the phone. So I'm going to answer. Oh. Always on time. Okay, good. Okay, one more. We took this a step further, and what happens if the call is missed and you've got a critical delivery that's showing up, or you got someone standing at the door that needs in, maybe it's a medical and someone needs her. What we've decided to do is we've connected, and this is just to show the art of possible, we've connected this call flow to turn box that then the card. You've got your yard people with their phones, but they miss. You've got maybe a small support team. Maybe it's an IT support desk, a little contact center. You can then take that adaptive card through Power Automate, summarize what's going on with the voicemail, identify that it's a certain call box at a gate, blast that out into Teams, into whoever you want to send that to, and give them a return call button right in the adaptive card, so they can just click return call and it will call right back to the call box. I'm not going to demo that, but I am going to just show what it sounds like. So we're going to call it and just let it ring. I guess I could show it if you want. We got time. I think it's 30 seconds, so bear with us here. I promise this is not. Okay, we got it. You'll hear the voicemail pick up. Please and thank you. All right, let's see. I'm going to pop out of pop over to Mark. Don't forget, I'm flipping over to my other demo user here. I see another one. See, this without your swearing, Mark. Yeah, you see the new one just popped in. I gotta refresh my view. So there you see I've summarized. Could you please open the door, blah, 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 blah. And then what I can do is I can say, you know what, let's return that call. He's at the door. Should call this back. It'll notify again. But there it is. So now I can open that gate for him. So I'll hit the door strike here. Doors open. All right. No pressure. All right. You know, Mark and I have talked a little bit. We didn't do this for the demo, but if we've got time, you could then take this and start to do some interesting things. I'm going to say it. Don't laugh at me, Mark. You could start to hook this to like AI, the Azure AI services, and start to do some pretty clever things. Again, imagine the use cases you can start to do with this. And again, with Teams Phone extensibility, I think there's that interesting use case for bringing video directly into that dialog box that pops on the Teams client. If you have someone who needs to verify visually as well as the audio. So with that, we're going to jump over. I showed this live. This is just a slide showing like, here's kind of what the Power Automate flow looks like over here, and then kind of where it would live. I kind of touched on this already. You guys can review this later, but it's just making sure that when you're thinking about moving to Teams, you want to bring integrated systems into Teams, carefully thinking through what that deployment needs to look like and understanding, is it copper? Is it multicast? Is it IP? And start to sit down and map out and diagram what that solution needs to look like. We find a lot of times, and I'll pick on James, he would never miss this, but I'm going to pick on him anyway. He's one of our sales guys at Momentum. Sometimes this is the last question that gets asked, if it gets asked, and it's often missed. So it's definitely worth, as you're thinking about your journey in a phone system, making sure you've taken into account, all the different things that your organization may require. I'll hold there. Again, I'm not going to read through these. You guys can read through them. This is just calling out do you want to use SIP Gateway at $8 per user per license to license all of this stuff? Or do you want to use a direct routing SBC setup where you just register these devices native SIP into an SBC and handle the complex dial plan? There's lots of different ways you can take a design and run with it. And cost is often one of the biggest factors in making that decision. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Vale. He's going to run through some pretty interesting customer use cases that he's seen.
How do I follow on from that? I've been working with brands for about 8 months in the UK, and my history is mainly been with UK. So getting to work with America, a learning curve for me, and it's also brought out some interesting issues that I've had to solve along that journey. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is a lawyer firm that we helped in New York. So they were coming from an old phone system, I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't one of the big three or the old three. And they have a bunch of lawyers and then even more paralegals working underneath those lawyers, and those paralegals will work for many of those lawyers, not just one. And those paralegals act as a secretary to the lawyers as well. So they're used to having phones with repeated sidecars on the side and being able to press buttons and not adopt the UC software client like we're used to. Unfortunately, they weren't really open to discussing maybe moving to full software client solution. They still wanted to use that physical phone environment. And in all honesty, they were right when it came down to really getting to understand how they use their phone system. So, as you can imagine, a lawyer doesn't want to be disturbed with phone calls every day. So the paralegals will take their phone calls. Now, Teams has a feature called Boss Delegate, and you can set that up so that members of your team can take calls on your behalf. That was good until we started to discuss the call volume that was involved for the paralegals to take. And they mentioned that their productivity is important as well, so they don't want to be disturbed audibly by the Teams client ringing every single second of the day for all these lawyers that they have to work under. So how can we still give them that boss delegate control so that they can manage call forwarding settings on behalf of the lawyer and set their voicemails, because busy people don't always remember to set their out of office, etc. But also not overly stimulate their senses by letting the Teams client ring every minute for every single call. So that was important. So the way that we did this, or we worked with them to do this, was we were going to use the delegates for the call control, but we were going to use the call groups for the actual call handling and management. And it's not always obvious in the Teams admin center that you can be a delegate and a Teams call group member for the same person. But it does have one very important feature that this company relied on. So the call flow that they wanted was when the call came in to the lawyer, they wanted the lawyer to have an option to take the call without the paralegals seeing the call come in. So whether it might be a personal call or it might be an important call that they need to answer themselves, they wanted an available amount of time to take that call. Should they not be able to take that call, they wanted the paralegals to be to answer the call, and they have a dedicated paralegal, then they have sub-paralegals underneath that can act as substitutes if both are busy. And if nobody answers the call, it needs to go back to the lawyer's voicemail. I forgot I had transitions in here. Right. So, to show you how we did this, and Brandon uses Firefox. That is, if this account was the lawyer's, set this up as an admin, go to the Voice tab, and the first thing that you need to do under call answering rules is to select call delegation. And then that will open up the box here that allows the paralegals in as a delegate so that they can manage the call forwarding settings. You notice here that we've got the make and receive calls, and it's set to on. That needs to be on. You can set that to say no calls, but if you set that to no calls and the member of the call group underneath, they won't get calls. So that needs to be set to make and receive calls, even if we're not using the delegate feature for the actual call delivery. Once that's set, just a nuance in the Teams Admin Center, we need to go and save it and then go back and set it to none, but the settings are already saved in the back end. Then underneath, we need to go and say group call pickup. So if it's unanswered, right, for 10 seconds, manage the group, and here, same user, and now I've got a notification where I can mute it or set it to banner. And I can also call people in that I had them here in the table. That's an important setting because what's going to happen now, when that's saved, is that when someone calls that number, this is the lawyer phone. That's going to be 10 seconds. This is the delegate or the paralegal phone, and that's going to ring silently, and you're just going to see a banner on there so that the paralegal gets a visual alert saying there's a call coming in. They can answer it if they need to, but it's not going to disturb them from that. So I'm going to make a call now. Hopefully it's to the right one.
Yep. So this time I'm calling off the mobile network, so it's a true PSTN call. Like Mark said, this phone's going to ring first, go into the delegate silent notification. So let's see if we can get this call to come in. The lawyer getting the phone call, but he's busy. She's busy, can't answer. Now watch.
Now you've got the coming on, the Teams client's not in. I can do or not. A side note from that, I'm going to give you a Brucey bonus, as we call it in the UK, and talk to you about something that I hadn't planned to do, but I got it working late last night, so hopefully it will work now. Who uses fax still? I'm going to make fax great again.
Hashtag.
All right. Let me flick over. This is going to take a little bit of time, so while this is doing its thing, we'll go on the next topic, and then we'll circle back to this. So if you think about a lawyer, real estate, conveyancer, we call them in the UK. Why doesn't PDF open on your laptop, Brandon?
Security, blame security.
Oh, that's really, there we go.
You got about
Yeah. So this is a typical contract that you get when you buy and sell a house, and this passes between solicitors, and they've both got to agree. And in the solicitor world, there is a certain thing of wet ink signatures. So where even Adobe or DocuSign signatures isn't right, because this physical copy needs to sit in someone's filing cabinet in someone's basement for the next 25 years until your house is paid for. So the way that solicitors do it, conveyancers do it in the UK, is that they will still fax those documents because they can't be edited and they have to be signed with ink and then faxed back. So, but in the modern world, what happens if you want to get rid of your fax machine, but you still need that fax capability? And you can see here on the conveyancer, it's listed me. I've got no information in this document at all that tells me what my UPN is, what email address it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can use Azure Document Intelligence and Azure OpenAI to read that document, find the solicitor, and send that solicitor, which will be me, hopefully, a Teams message with a summary of what's in that document or what I should pay attention to, if there's any red flags legally, for instance. So I go into one. Grab a fax number 1 minute.
This will be the receiving side. This is going to be the account that receives the fax. You guys know.
Yeah. I just go choose the file.
Crashing my computer, man.
Yeah, I know. Where's downloads on here? If you tip for you, never present on anybody else's machine but your own. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got actually, I got blessed with good eyesight, so my resolution is like 8K. So probably over there going, why is your screen so small?
I've sent that now, but I'll come back to that in a bit. So the next scenario, this isn't a customer that I've solved, but James went to a user group in Columbus, I think, and he came back with an interesting scenario where there's a requirement for a receptionist to page or contact a surgeon in any of the operating theatres in the hospital. They don't know where they are, but they'll need to be able to say, I've got an important call for you. Can you please pick that up? Now, in traditional telephony, that would generally be an overhead page, say, I've got a call on line 1 for you. And the surgeon would go up and the phone and press a line key 1 and they pick the phone up. Problem with some of the Teams devices is that they're going more towards touchscreens, and they aren't always capacitive touch. Where you've got latex gloves and stuff like that, there's hygiene involved and all that type of stuff. And it's like, how can we replicate that environment in Teams using certified devices while still giving the user the ability to do it? So these were the rules that came out of it, that there were 5 operating theatres, rooms. Sorry, theatres is the UK thing for ORs. Apparently I got called out on my British. The receptionist doesn't know where that surgeon is. So in that case, they need to be able to put out an alert to a room, say that there's a call. And there's needs to be able to pick that call up from the by touching as little buttons as possible. Up. The caller needs to be returned to the receptionist. Can't just leave them in a unsupported or unmanaged call. How am I going to do it? I'm going to set up what I call 2 headless Teams user accounts, just shared device licensed accounts that are activated for Teams. And for the purposes of this, I'm going to call them line 1, line 2. And I'm going to create 5 shared device licenses for each of the ORs and put Polycom phones in each of those operating rooms. Then, in much the same extension of what I showed you in the previous demo, where we're utilizing that call delegate and team group, call group, we're going to do the same thing here, but just with one added difference. And is how do we get the caller back from that phone back to the receptionist phone at the desk? And we're going to do that using voicemail redirects. This is kind of how it looks in the picture. So the caller would call in the receptionist, they would take the call, they would potentially go and call the surgeon's personal team's line first. Maybe they're in their office. If there's no answer, they can put the caller on hold. They can go and page operating room phones using similar experience to what Brandon's shown you. And then when the receptionist has hung up the page, they can transfer the caller to one of those line headless Teams accounts, which are going to be configured with call delegation, Teams call groups, and also voicemail redirect. And each of the theatre phones are going to be a Teams call group for each of those two lines, and it's going to call them all at once. Won't go into too much. Now the escape key doesn't work.
You're already out of it.
Hey? So this is just an extension. It's just exactly the same setup where the call pickup will be set for the least amount of time possible, which is 10 seconds. And then in the voicemail, we've got to turn on the voicemail settings. And then we're going to say, play a message to the caller. Call transfer is transferred to a user. And it's going to go back to the receptionist. I don't have a receptionist account, but for the purposes, can't spell today. US keyboard.
That's my admin user.
And then in the default greeting prompt, you can say, we're just returning. Please hold while we return you to the receptionist or what. When you say that, we don't need to demo this because you've seen it mostly, and the transfer won't really work anyway. Is that when the call comes in, if this phone was in the operating theatre, for instance, it would ring silently. The surgeon would just need to pick the handset up and close it. Don't have to push any buttons for line one. And that's the most hygienic way possible to do it. So I guess the biggest question is, could I not use call queues? Well, in theory, yes. But because, again, we didn't really want to make these phones ring in operating theatres audibly, because there could be other surgeries going on. They don't want to be disturbed. We needed to have that silent ring capability, and there's no real reliable way to make these phones ring in queues silently without adjusting the volume, and people will adjust the volume, and we can't manage it as an admin. So that's the main reason why call queues were probably inappropriate for this particular use case. Before Matt jumps in, let's see if my fax thing has worked. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's not sent yet. There we go. Got workflow in now. So received a fax. And we've got Azure OpenAI, document intelligence, summarizing the terms of the contract. It's come to me, identified me as the conveyancer, give me a summary of what's all in that document, what the red flags are. And then I can click to open the actual document as well. That's stored. Once we can get the facts into SharePoint, we could do what we want through Power Automate. So, with that, I'll pass you over to Matt, and he'll close out. Thank you very much.
Everybody. All right, so mine is not going to be as fancy as these guys over here. So I apologize. In the spirit of solving complex scenarios, as many of you know, texting has been a pain point for some. So with the recent announcement of SMS and Teams, I did want to go through this. I think, Michael, you covered it a little bit as well, so get a little repeat here. Release in February here, initiate, receive, write natively in the Teams app using your calling plan number, no third-party integrations or additional DID to solve the scenario. Notifications come in just like any other Teams message. You can control unknown senders the same way as if you were to get a Teams message from an external user. You get that initial pop-up that says accept or block that contact. So you have that capability there. And then basic functionalities, mute conversations, etc. One thing I'm going to point out, and this can be new for some, is that the classification of texting here is application to person, which does require 10 DLC registration. I'm going to go through that more here in an upcoming slide, but important call out there because it's not confusing for some. I will go over some of the limitations here, not to get too bleak. It is SMS only, no MMS support. So no emojis, GIFs, anything like that. It's going to register your text messages, break them up into 160 character blocks, just like old school texting. No group text, so it's one-to-one only. No capability at this time for initiating or receiving group text. Geographic restrictions are going to be to US and Canada only. So definitely a great opportunity for those on-call plans in these locations to utilize this new functionality. Tenant availability, not available in GCC High or DoD. So this would be a standard commercial tenant that you'd be limited to. And then I already mentioned the. All right. As you know, agree in licensing and utilization here. So I'm going to try and I tried to simplify this as much as I could. So requirements, obviously, same as standard calling capabilities. Teams phone entitlement plus a Teams calling plan. You can use either a domestic calling plan or pay as you go. The same with similar concept with minute utilizations with calling plans. You're going to be pay as you go. You're going to be billed per 160 character segment. There is no like a pool of allocated messages in the pay as you go. Domestic calling plans will include different pools. I'll go over that in a second. Overages. So this is either as pay as you go, or if you if you reach your threshold for your pooled messages, you'll be billed at that overage rate. Carrier surcharges, so be aware of that as well. If you are utilizing the pooled messages that are included in some of the calling plans, there are no carrier surcharges until you get to that that overage. So something to keep in mind there. Some carriers will add an additional, a tenth of a penny to your messages. So something to keep in mind as you're planning on, your utilization costs and what your pricing is going to be. Billing setup does require communication credits or postpaid invoicing, the new commerce experience. You can see on the right the allocation or the pooled messages per calling plan type. So pay as you go is 0, and then you go down to 100 and 200 for the others for your standard calling plans there. These are pooled at level the same way as the calling plan minute utilization. So that's not per user, that's across your tenant. You'll pool. And down at the bottom right here, you can see what those usage fees are for US on the left and Canada on the right. Again, those will apply to pay as you go for every message and for your overages. Okay, application to person classification. What does it mean? For those that don't know, I'll try to explain this a little bit here for you, and it can be somewhat of a complex process. So 10 DLC network operators in the US. This is classified as that. We are sending, even though we're probably be person classified more as a. Therefore, in the US, it requires registration to the 10 DLC network. The 10 DLC network is a governing body that spam and text messages that you registered and compliant with certain requirements. Register what we will call campaigns for usage for application texting. So you'll have to go through this registration process in order to turn on SMS for your calling plans in the Teams Admin Center. Now, Microsoft has made this somewhat easy. You can manage all of this in the Teams Admin Center, and they're relaying that on your behalf to the 10DLC network to register. It does take registered already. It can take, there's plug. Say that one more time.
It can. You just have to have a legal entity, brand and campaign behind the lab, whoever your organization is.
Yep. All right. So registration requirements. I think I covered that. The registration process involves two parts. You're going to have your brand, which is your company identification and validation. A lot of information you'll put in there. I'll show you here in a second. And then you're going to have your campaign. So that's your purpose and context of your SMS operation. Again, keep in mind, because it's classified as A to P, it's like you're setting up a marketing to do this. Doesn't mean you're limited to that use case. People are probably going to use it for more that person-to-person texting, but because of the classification, you will have to register. And Microsoft's role in this, of course, is to facilitate that registration process and then to enable in your Teams client. So I have a little, you'll recognize this, Michael. I have a little demo here. So I went into the Teams Admin Center, service configuration. Keep in mind, you can only do this one per tenant. So you cannot register multiple brands and or campaigns within your tenant. So keep that in mind when you're setting this up. Click. You're going to fill out all of your company information on the right-hand side there, condition, and then you'll click submit. Fairly quick process. I think we advertise about 5-minute turnaround time for this. So, you know, this part is quite fast to get approval. Once you go through that step 1, you're going to go through step 2, which is creating your campaign. Again, you'll do the same. This option, step 2, will unlock once your brand is approved. You'll click create your campaign to start. Over on the right-hand side, you're going to put in all your terms and conditions, what your use case is, your marketing, strategy, etc. There's lots to read through. I'm not going to go through all of those. So check it out if you guys are interested in enabling this, and you'll see all of that. There's tons of documentation on Microsoft Learn on this, some example text for some of your terms and conditions that you have to register through 10DLC for your campaign. So check it out. Definitely recommend. Okay, and so that second part, that campaign registration, is the one that is going to take some time. New feature, huge backlog. So if you're interested in it, I would recommend you do it now so that you get into the queue for them to process, because it will take quite a while to get through that backlog. Okay, once all of that's done, you'll get a notification that it's been approved, and then that's essentially it. So last step here, step 3, is going to be, you're going to go into your phone number tab in the Teams Admin Center. You'll select the phone number that SMS, and then right up at the top there, you'll simply click enable for SMS. Once that's complete, that phone number that's registered to that user will be able to make and receive the SMS notifications. And this is natively that offer similar features, but as for someone with calling plans with essentially no additional cost minus overages or pay as you go, great option for you. Yes. It's advertised as $49. That can there's an option where you can select more, essentially, where you can have more than 49 number is registered for. Yes, correct. Yes. Yep. And this is last slide here. So just recommendations. I think I kind of covered most of this. So great, convenient option for one-to-one SMS if you're already in the Canada region and you're already using Teams phone calling plans. Again, natively right in the app. Considerations: no MMS, group text, Canada only. Pricing, definitely analyze that. Affected utilization. Kind of maybe do some cost calculations there to see what you kind of are aware of what that's going to cost you, if anything additional. Recommendations, again, can be a topic. I spent a lot of time going through quite a bit of stuff to get this, especially with applications. So definitely recommend you guys do the same. Basic needs, etc. You can explore third-party options if MMS is required. And then also, last point here is user adoption. So I would definitely, if you do decide to enable this in your user adoption is going to be key here because of some of the limitations. So when you turn that on, bring that you're letting your users know of the limitations, no MMS, no group, etc. So, you know, follow your management there. All right, that was it for us.
And Matt did a nice write-up on this SMS on LinkedIn. I think you published an article. So
we're pretty much out of time. I wouldn't get through all of this. We've listed some of the caveats and call out, like customers wanting to record their 911 calls, caveats and limitations, considerations there. Everything we've showed here that's native in Teams, that we demoed, we get asked a lot about GCCH. A lot of this can also be done in GCCH. You just need routing, and a really good team internally or a partner who can help.
GCCI. A lot of our use cases actually came from our GCCI customer base. So everything you saw pretty much is done in GCCI. Call out some requirements.
We'll queue up the questions. One last thing. I'm not going to spend that much time on it, but I think one thing that gets overlooked is, you know, as you start to get into
Your modern work collaboration, communication,
work environment like Microsoft, Power BI often
overlooked.
your data is key, right? So
So this is just a sample showing even
my door box,
I can start to call patterns to understand that how come I'm getting
it seems like all my deliveries are coming at 7 p.m. and everyone's not home. Maybe there's a stack consideration to happen. So
I would encourage
anyone, as you go out and setting up these more complex environments, don't forget about Power BI. Data is key. So with that,
we're 1 minute, so questions. If not, we'll be up here tearing down
if you want to come ask questions.
while we're tearing down.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.